Hello and welcome to Good or Bad. Pinhead's the villain. Hellraiser 3, Pinhead is finally the bad guy. There's no side shuffling or focusing on something else. Bit redundant, but point is, Pinhead's the baddie. Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth, was directed by Anthony Hickox and is actually quite a bit of fun. True enough, the acting isn't all that, and not a single character even borders being memorable, but there's a Cenobite with CDs in his head, and isn't that the main thing in the end? Probably not, but still, it's fun. So aside from a quick cameo by Ashley Lawrence, and of course, Doug Bradley returning as Pinhead, this movie features an entirely new cast. And since I said that no one is memorable, aren't we off to a good start? But hey, maybe they can be momentarily entertaining?
My first gig that isn't kindergarten kids or diet gurus is taken away from me.
Yeah, well, like you said, it's a mystery. But that's all it is, a mystery.
Well, shit. If you remember last time, all the Cenobites got killed off, and we saw Pinhead's face get strapped to a kebab spinner. Also, Pinhead's humanity was revealed, which does come into play in this movie, which is good because I remember the last movie never did anything with it and it felt pointless. So it's good that they made use of it for the third movie. So, how does this movie start? Well, it starts at the beginning, like most movies. That's a shit joke, I'm going to hell. Ha! Even worse joke. But no, we see JP Monroe, who is an arsehole, and a rich fancy club owner, who is played by Kevin Bernhardt. And he is in a shop that sells artistical things. Probably not a word, but he finds a piece that really speaks to him. And yes, that is the kebab spinner from the last movie. It's not a kebab spinner, I should stop calling it a kebab spinner, but then again, they're not pins in his head, they're nails, yet everyone calls him Pinhead, so checkmate. So yes, he purchases the statue, which will eventually lead to shenanigans. And how will shenanigans ensue, you ask? Well, because JP gets bit by a rat, which causes a lot of blood to spew out of him, onto the one thing that you wouldn't want blood to spew out onto. Who would be that relaxed? You just witnessed blood being sucked up by a stone. There's a joke in there somewhere. Eh. But this has awoken Pinhead, and while JP screws some random girl, Pinhead eats her. Presumably after she has just been eaten by JP. Right, no. I shall conduct myself better than that. This channel is above such jokes. Probably. So, Pinhead isn't fully restored, he needs more meat, and JP promises, very difficult to say, promises to get him more flesh, and he knows just the person. You know, I'm sure striking deals with hellish creatures is just a staple of Hellraiser at this point. But yes, the person he has in mind is his old girlfriend Terry. And we actually meet Terry at the start of the movie. And she's played by Paula Marshall, and she brought someone from JP's club to the hospital. And this person had chains attached to him. And then he just exploded, which caught the eyes of a reporter, who is actually our main character Joey, who is played by Terry Farrell. So Joey has been following the story throughout this movie, which got her talking to Terry. She says that the guy that exploded on the hospital bed took something from JP's statue, which was in fact a hell box. So yeah, he opened it and got Hellraisered to death. Now the movie spends some time with Terry and Joey, well, quite a bit of time actually, and it builds them both up as if they were main characters, but then the movie just seemingly drops Terry completely. She got a phone call from JP asking to meet up, but when she goes to meet up with him, he tries to sacrifice her, and the tables turn when she manages to get the upper hand, and Pinhead offers her the same deal he offered JP. So yeah, JP dies and Pinhead is restored. And that is the last time we see Terry until right at the end of the movie, where we see that Pinhead has turned her into a Cenobite. So she feels like a fake-out main character. But regardless, Pinhead is back, and this time he gets to be the star of the show. Because in the last two movies they sidelined him for either Frank or Channard. But not this time. And this time he is different. Because remember when I said that this movie makes use of the Pinhead was human reveal that Hellraiser 2 did? Well, essentially what has happened is he has separated into two versions of himself. Captain Elliot Spencer, the good version, and Pinhead, the evil that was too strong to die. So the Pinhead that we get for this movie isn't guided by the same sense of morality that the previous two movies Pinheads had. This one just wants to kill and torture as many people as possible. And we see this in full effect in the scene where Pinhead attacks the club. And oh yes, there will be cheese. But while we do have lots of cheesy visuals and villainous laughter, it then cuts to the other side of the locked doors, where we just see blood flowing out from under the door, and all we hear is what Pinhead is doing to them on the other side. Granted, it does just sound like Chains attacking people, which is his signature move, but it's still a really effective shot. So we are getting the over-the-top visuals that the Hellraiser films are famous for, but at the same time the movie is telling us that he is not messing about. You could argue that it's tonally mixed, but I think it works well enough. But how does our main character fit into any of this? Well, that's where the good version of Pinhead comes into it. Joey and Elliot Spencer team up to stop Pinhead. Well, that's about the gist of it anyway, but the specifics of it are a little maddening. Spencer is a ghost who was able to reach out to Joey because Joey dreams of finding her father, who died during the war in Vietnam. So that's enough to establish a connection, apparently, because there's no difference between dreaming something and reaching out to the afterlife in this movie. Makes sense, yeah. It doesn't. It really, really doesn't. But whatever. He was able to do that because the movie needed him to do that. He wants to stop Pinhead because he used to be Pinhead, but now that the evil has been freed, I guess he feels a little obliged to try and stop him now. But he cannot do it from where he is. He needs someone to drag Pinhead from the real world to the world where he has control. So she needs to use a hellbox to send him to that dimension so Spencer can sort him out. But Pinhead wants the hellbox so he can destroy it and remove that possibility. But luckily for Joey, she has some plot armor on this one.
But what if he takes the box from me before...
He can't take it. It must be given to him. And that's where your courage will count.
Convenient, isn't it? Okay, so after Pinhead's little massacre, he kills a bunch of Joey's friends who were reporting on said massacre, and then they have a little one-on-one.
Oh, it's unbearable, isn't it? The suffering of strangers, the agony of friends.
Allow me to narrate this for you. Give me the box, Joey! No! Yeah, that's pretty much it, just with added flavour. Now, I do like this scene. Joey runs through the streets as Pinhead causes chaos all around her. But it all winds up in a church. Well, not really. They do move on from this scene, but I want to point this out. Pinhead puts his blood into a priest's mouth, and then Joey leads him away. And that's the last we see of that priest, so I gotta wonder, is that setting something up for the later sequels?
Come on and get it. This is what you want.
It's climax time! And Joey figures out how to use the box and starts zapping people with it. But she is not out of the woods yet, as she is transported to Otherworld Land, where she sees her father. It's Pinhead. She is being tricked, and she falls for it and gives him the box.
Thank you, Joey.
But oh no! If he brought himself into that world, That means he's in Spencer's realm now.
No!
So just because she's the main character, there's no flesh tearing with those chain attacks? Alright, let's wrap this up. Spencer and Pinhead merge using... Ew. Sorry, wow. If that gets me, I really shouldn't watch something like The Human Centipede. Or should I? No, it's a terrible idea. Or is it? Right, yes, sorry. Back on point. They merge, but that doesn't reset Pinhead to his old ways. He's still evil Pinhead. But Spencer does hold him back long enough to give Joey time to send him to hell. This time by stabbing him with the box. Which makes a change because usually it just shoots them. She buries the box, and then the movie cuts to a building with hellish designs. And that was obviously more sequel bait. But anyway, that was Hellraiser 3, Hell on Earth. But was it hell to sit through? No, is the easy answer to that. It was a ton of fun to sit through, and we finally got to see a badass evil Pinhead that was going full on hell demon. And that alone was worth the watch.
I am the way.
Sure, you have to sit through bad acting, uninteresting characters, and it is a bit too long of a wait for Pinhead to show up. 30 minutes before we even see Pinhead talk, and then another 20 minutes before he's reborn properly. So it took a while for the movie to gain traction, I'll give you that. But once it got going, it was a blast. There were all sorts of new Cenobites, like CD-headed guy and camera-headed guy. But yes, there was that problem with Terry. The movie builds her up as a main character, then drops her 50 minutes in, and then we see her for like 2 seconds at the end as a Cenobite, and that's it. It was wasted potential as far as I'm concerned, because Terry was a much more interesting character than Joey was. So, 2 questions to answer. 1, was it better than either of the first 2 movies? And 2, was it a good sequel? Well, the first movie was better made, and so was the second one actually, because frankly the cast and characters were better in those movies. But this one is more balls to the wall fun. But then this movie is less visually interesting. The designs aren't as good this time around. And as mentioned before, the acting is bad, like really stale sometimes. Especially Joey's character. The dialogue just feels forced. So no, it's not better. And as a sequel, it drops every character except for Pinhead. But it does make use of the Pinhead was human reveal from Hellbound, which Hellbound never did anything with. And it connected the dots pretty well by explaining that everything that Channard, the bad guy from Hellbound, had in his hellish collection was sold at auction, which is where JP picked up the statue. So that worked pretty well, and it felt natural that the characters would convey this information to us because Joey was a reporter. So yeah, it's a pretty decent sequel, even if it is lower in quality, but ups the cheesy fun and delivers a more climactic ending. And I have one more thing to say, which goes back to Pinhead being used as a clear-cut villain. I loved it for this movie, but I do hope they go back to the Pinhead that we saw in the first 2 movies, because rarely do you get a horror figure that can be reasoned with, but still remains a threat. So it was fun for this movie to see what he is like unbound by his rules. But if they keep him like this, it will still be fun but more generic. And that is all I have to say about Hellraiser 3. You have been watching Good or Bad, and I'll see you next time.